Whatever is happening, are you not trusting your partner because of something that actually happened? Or is it something that you're, as you said, self sabotaging? Perhaps you're expecting something to happen.
Did you push record?
Thanks so much for tuning back into our second act with Paige and Silka.
For your second act of life. Hey, Silka.
Hello, Paige. Once again, I want to welcome you back in your very natural state today.
Yes.
If you missed our last segment, Paige is having some really bad shoulder issues. And, it just shows your true beauty when you can't do your makeup. I wish I could do that.
I actually like it better, believe it or not.
Well, like I said before, you look like you're 15 years old. So anyway, you look beautiful, and I'm so glad that you chose to be with me here today again, because we have another important topic to discuss, and that is trust issues in relationships. Big topic, obviously, and at the root of a lot of relationships failing. So what I'd like to discuss is, first of all, why trust issues develop, how do trust issues surface, and then what do you do?
Big question. Silky, you love to throw me big questions. So it's a good question. So first of all, even before you get into a relationship, each one of us has some kind of trust issues. It's just part of being a human being. So you have to really pay attention to what are your specific trust issues. Has someone cheated on you before? And you can go back even further as a child. Did you watch your parent or parents? Did one of them cheat on the other? That leaves such a resounding bitterness and fear when a child watches what's happened to their family because one of their parents cheated on another one of their parents. You can add also into that, as a child, maybe your childhood friend or friends did something to you that made you not trust them because you were hurt from them. There's all these different ways that trust can happen. Or maybe even your parent or a caregiver or someone older than you told you something, you found out later it was a lie and it was devastating, whatever it might be. So remember, you don't just come to a relationship and poof, things don't work out because there was a trust issue in there. You have to first identify what are your themes of trust issues, how deep are they, how intense are they, and how much fear and anxiety does that bring to a relationship or paranoia that you start to, push that person away and or sabotage and create it. So I'll pause there for a moment before we go further so you can add your input in that segment.
Well, yes, you bring up, a really good point, especially at this stage in life. We've had 50 years to deal with, to acquire and deal with trust issues. So, so what is it that we bring into the relationship? What is real? What isn't? And maybe that's where I'd like to steer this conversation is whatever is happening, are you not trusting your partner because of something that actually happened? Or is it something that you're, as you said, self-sabotaging? Perhaps you're expecting something to happen. So let's talk about that. If it's you, if you're bringing something to the table and constantly causing, agitation, anxiety to your partner when he or she hasn't done anything, how do you deal with that?
Well, you just said it. You have to deal with it. You have to take ownership again of dealing with what are your trust issues. And, as we get older, we tend to become more cynical. We tend to not trust as much because we've had a lot of trauma or death or whatever it might be that's gone through our life that we don't want the pain anymore. So, we're doing everything we can to make sure that nobody hurts us and that nobody, does anything. So you have to start with yourself always. And I've always said that through our shows. So the first thing is if you have major trust issues that are getting in the way, work with the therapist, work with a coach, work with somebody who can identify what's going on, drill down into it, and reshape that story because it's a story. It's a story that either it's been done to you, or you've watched it happen and you've taken someone else's story and you're holding it. A lot of people do that and don't realize that they're taking someone else's stuff and they're holding it thinking it's theirs.
Well, that brings up a question for me.
Okay.
Where do you decipher between is something that you're making up or trusting your own intuition?
Easy. You have to work on it. And the way you work on it is deciding, first of all, what are the trust issues? Drilling down and finding out, is it somebody else's story that you're carrying that it's not yours to hold anymore? Did something happen to you and you've created a story about people, men, women, life, the universe, God, whatever it is? You have to decide, what are those stories? One, do you want to shift them? Two, how much do you want to shift them? And three, if you decide you want to shift them and how much, then you have to decide, okay, how do I trust myself once I've done this work to see the flags, to know where my stuff ends and another person begins? And that's called life. It's called a big practice field. So you will always get opportunities to practice how to connect to your inner knowing and your trust between friends, colleagues, people you meet in the grocery store, contractors, and your loved one. So you will always get to practice these if you choose to.
Yeah. Well, and that brings us to what, when there is a trust, something has happened. You were, whatever. We're talking relationships, and obviously infidelity is the biggest trust issue. So something has happened.
Mm-hmm.
How do you deal with, one, I guess you have to decide that you want to save the relationship. So how do you rebuild trust after something like that happens?
It's not easy. So you have to know that it's not easy, because when somebody steps out of the relationship, it's because something was going on long beforehand. The two people were not working on things. They weren't being honest with each other. And that happens a lot. So like you said, you have to decide, have you had enough and this was the straw and you're done and it's over? Or you really love this person? And the person who cheated on you, do they want the relationship? How many times couples will come in and that's the first question I ask, why are you here? What do you want out of these sessions? And I can tell right away when someone's committed to wanting to change. What I have seen is a lot of times if the person has cheated on someone, the person who's the cheater will want to go, okay, can we move this along? Because they don't want to sit in what they've done. And what I always say is, no, we cannot move this along, and you cannot move along the person on your time frame of something that you did. Mm-hmm. So each person has to realize what commitment looks like to each other. And that's a whole other show as to how that plays along, what you do. And that's also trust in yourself, trust in what is it that you really want. And if you want to stay in the relationship, why are you wanting to stay in the relationship? Because don't do it out of fear, especially when you're 50 and older. Don't do it out of, oh my gosh, who's going to love me? I'm older now. I'm too afraid to be by myself. What if I have a health issue? What if? You can always have those, but don't ever compromise yourself or your soul out of fear or anxiety.
Yeah. Yeah, this is such a huge issue. I do want to do more segments on this. In particular stuff. I mean, I've been open about this in earlier segments. In my 25-year marriage, he cheated on me early on, throughout, and it is something that will affect the rest of your life. So it's very, very difficult, and you can't bring that into new relationships and how to deal with it. So I especially understand and acknowledge that, and I do want to spend more time on it. So let's close out this segment. Okay. What's the takeaway?
Oh, there's a lot. The biggest takeaway is, first and foremost, you as an individual need to decide, what are your trust issues? Where did they come from? Are you carrying someone else's story? What is your stories? Do you want to shift the stories? And do you want to step in and learn how to be open and trust again? We'll start there.
Yeah. I hear you, and I think let's talk about that off camera. How we continue this, and if any of our viewers, if you have specific questions, I know so many of you are affected by this. Please let us know, because we'd really like to gear this towards your specific issues, especially as they come in en masse as they usually do. So thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you next time on Our Second Act with Paige and Silka.
For your second act of life.
Bye.
Bye.
If you haven't already done so, please be sure to subscribe to our channel. The button is right over here. Just click on through to YouTube, and when you see that little bell right next to the subscribe button, hit that too. We'll notify you every time we launch a new video. See you next time.